Hello and welcome to the United Devil channel with me, JB. I hope we're all doing really well on this Monday the 14th of July. Yeah, I hope we all had a good weekend in whatever we did. I'd love to know what you did on the weekend. If it was more exciting than this the transfer window, more exciting than what's going on with this club at the moment. So as the thumbnail says, basically that Rashford's in limbo, and I think that we're going to have a cheap transfer window. Now, you've probably heard this the whole weekend. Right now, I don't tend to do videos on a weekend purely because I have a family, I work, and I don't have time. But I'd love to do 2 shows a day. I'd love to do more content. So just give me a thumbs up, make this channel bigger, and if you like what you see, then obviously I can make some more content. It seems to me the last 3-4 weeks, I have been up and down with this club, and I'm sure, like everyone else right now, we are in a limbo as to what is happening with this club. As we saw last night, Chelsea won the Club World Cup because their owners obviously want to invest in their team. And yes, they have bought some absolute garbage. They've bought some absolute trash, but they also just keep persevering with this squad. And now they've got a really good squad. Fast forward, change of pace for us and United. What are we doing? So what am I talking about with Rashford being in limbo? So over the weekend, there's been little transfer news for this club, and the only news that comes out is limited, but it doesn't seem ever to be good. According to Fabrizio, who is the transfer goat, the latest update on Rashford is that Barcelona, after internal talks, seem to be, they're not sure whether now they're after a winger. So it could be that Rashford now is not necessarily on their list of targets to pursue. Now, what does this actually mean? I'd love to know what you think this means. I cannot believe we are a couple of weeks into the window. Rashford is still on the thumbnail. We're still talking about this player, and I'm not necessarily saying that at this point this is all his fault. I think as a club, I think we need to take responsibility. Added to that, this week, United are turning their attention to the transfers. Now they haven't done any of this, so they'll be talking to players this week. So the likes of Rashford's camp, the Garnacho camp, the Onana camp, and we can talk about Onana as well. So there's many things to talk about. Not all good, but we can start to delve through that. And I'd love to know your thoughts. One thing I will say on here, as long as we are respectful of each other's opinions, I really don't mind what you say. I'm not gonna block, obviously, unless it's rude. But you can pretty much say what you like. What I do really love is I kind of love those outlandish thoughts. What your opinions are. These opinions are mine. This is based on the things that I see, on the things that I've read, and basically me supporting this club for 38 years. The last 12, 13 years of this window, what the Glazers have done to this club, and now Ineos in hand, what they're doing as well to this club. So I'd love to know your opinions on the Rashford saga, and do you think that he's going to stay here for the remainder of his contract? The Barcelona thing, I think it's always important to have an opinion. I've got my opinions, and as I say, I'd love to know your opinions on this right now. So my opinion on this, I think that possibly this is a tactic whereby Barcelona are going to try to get Rashford on a cheap deal. I think this has all the hallmarks of a typical a Barcelona move, whereby they will go to the end of the window, as it is their right to do, because they tend to get the players that they want, and they always seem to do it on a cheap deal. So I think Rashford is going to go until the end of the window. Now, the problem with that for Rashford is the pre-season. He really needs one because he wants to go to a World Cup. Now, what are the other options for him? Bayern, I'm not sure that is an option. It was an option, and I'm not sure whether he's on their list of things to do. Now, I am of the opinion that Rashford will go. I think it's imperative that he'll go. The Barcelona thing, I think is going to happen. I think it will happen at the end of the window. We'll be rushed and we'll be forced to loan him and probably pay a large chunk of his wages. If not, and Ineos and the Glazers decide to keep him and decide to let him rot on the bench, I think that's an interesting pitch on that. However, as we all know, the biggest the biggest aim of the of Ineos and the Glazers right now is to penny pinch and to get as much money as they possibly can. So they're not going to be happy paying all of the Rashford pay. So they are going to want to do something and get this over the line. So I really can't see Rashford staying. I think he needs to go. But in the meantime, as we all know, it is the Rashford circus on thumbnails. I can't believe he's still on my thumbnails, purely because that's pretty much the only news, the mainstay news. And I mean, how sad is that? How sad is that we still have to talk about a player who, in my mind, has already gone? I don't know the person, and I don't actually think he's necessarily a bad person. On the pitch, the performances haven't been good. So from that perspective, there is no malice from me. There can't be, because I don't know the guy. I want him to move on to a club. I want him to do well. He's a young man, and he deserves a right, in my opinion, to go off to a club and do well. So I don't hold that against the lad. I just want him to go off and do well. And what else have I seen over the weekend? In Burmo, I didn't really. It's almost right now a toss-up between Mbermo on the window or Rashford on the window on the thumbnail, and I kind of toss up between the two because both things are getting really boring now. So in Burma, I'd love to know your take on this. I last week had the opinion that in Burma was going to get announced this week. It's Bobby in the chat. Hello, Bobby. I hope you are doing well and had a really good weekend, my friend. Whatever you did, and apologies, we are talking about the same stuff because guess what? Nothing has actually changed. So in Burmo, again, I was of the opinion that there's a kit launch, I think, on Wednesday, and in Burmo would be involved in that and the deal would get announced. So I think for that to happen, I think the Imbermo deal needs to get announced today, tomorrow, with basically him holding up a shirt, maybe the purple shirt. So I think that's the only way. I think that's the only way this gets done this week. Now, I think we can all have our opinions on this deal. I do think that we have a third bid in place, and what do we do at that point? I think if reports come out that this is our final bid, we can't reach an agreement and we walk away from this deal, I worry. I'm already concerned, but I really worry even more so about the state of this club. So I think that we cannot walk away from this deal. I'm of the belief that it needs to get done. But it's taken all the excitement. I want this player in. I really like this player, but I don't know about everyone else, but I'm tired, absolutely tired of talking about this guy, this transfer for no fault of in Burmo. They've taken and sucked the joy out of this deal. So when he comes, I'd love to do a video on this, a positive one. But right now, I think this deal was just dragged on beyond is necessary. You know, we're looking at other clubs, and we've got to compare, and we've got to contrast, and we've got to compare, and we've got to question, because if we don't, we can't. We have to, as a fan base now, I think we have to start holding them to account. Obviously, there are other. You know, if your opinion, Bobby, I am got my fingers crossed that it is this week, because I don't think my sanity can go for another week, because I'll be questioning what this deal will do. So Adjiri, I hope I've pronounced that right. I hope you're doing well. How are you, James? Trafford for £40 million for Newcastle, and Scavilli £56. Ollie Watkins should sign for £50 million now for Newcastle. I think if you look around this weekend, or you've looked around for the last week, and we can talk about why I think this transfer window is a typical Ineos one, and why it's cheap, and obviously why we need to sell to buy, which I think is obvious. When you look at all the deals that have been done, you know, your clubs that are factually, only in terms of size, are smaller than us, are doing deals, continue to do deals. You know, you look at the Chelseas, and I'm gonna mention them. You know, they've gone out and beat the best team in the world, in my opinion. You may have different opinions to me on that, but you know, they've gone out, and now are they the best team in the world? They're trying to be. You know, are they going to be a handful next season? Probably are. So they've moved on. They've strengthened their team, and I think it is fair to say that we can't wait years, because if we wait years for this, we're going to fall behind and behind and behind, and we can't catch up. You know, these clubs, and it's true that the Champions League now is pretty much a Super League, which we're not part of. So the Glazers' biggest aim, which I'm really ashamed of all these years after, when they tried to take us into a Super League and they tried to con us fans into it, the very thing that they wanted to do, that they now are not doing it, because they can't, because they're not in it. So the revenue that these teams will earn from this, and I generally, and unless you can, I'd love to know your opinion. Unless you have a plan, I'd love to hear your plan. How we get back into the Champions League, with Liverpool strengthening, Chelsea strengthening, Gyökeres is just gone to Arsenal, and I see that deal, and it just, I'm not sure we actually were legitimately ever in for this player. I know we like him as a well, I do anyway, but I'm just not everything right now. I'm questioning absolutely everything, and the spin that comes out of this club. So I really worry. In Burmo, the last thing to say on this, I just don't think that I want to spend any more time on this today, because it's going to be the whole week of this. Is that I'm hoping it gets done this week. I'm hoping it gets done today, tomorrow, and he's holding up the shirt on Wednesday. If not, then I don't know what the hell is happening. Bobby, we need to buy, or we have no chance of top 8. Never mind top 4. I agree with you. I think that's a perfect segue into why I think this is a cheap window. So if you look at what we've done over the last year, we've cut costs. So the charity that we were given £40,000 a year to, that's been cut, like like that's okay. The workforce has been cut in half, and we're not talking about people who earn hundreds of thousands of pounds a year, hundreds of thousands of pounds. We're talking about, Steve in the canteen. We're talking about cleaners. We're talking about people who are been there for a very long time, and they have no problem in cutting those jobs. And I do agree that in some organizations maybe you do need to trim the fat, but trimming the fat to that extent. And when Liverpool have, and City are a little bit streamlined, but Liverpool, Arsenal still have more employees than us. So we've currently been run like a company. So what else? Why are we not considering the fact that this is an opportunity for them not to spend money? They saw Liverpool last season not spend any money and win a league title. I'm terrified to think that this lack of football understanding at the top of this club is, they think that they can possibly do the same. We are trying to do things right now with a squad of, we're actually weakened. And I know Rashford wasn't here last year. Sancho wasn't here last year. So Garnacho was here last year. No, he's not going to play again. So we've actually weakened ourselves. We've lost players as well. Like an Ericsson's gone and Lindelof has gone. And I'm not saying that these players were starters, and I'm not saying these players are the best, but factually, as a team, we are now weakened. And what have we done to replace those players? We actually haven't. And we finished 15th, and we lost a Europa League final to a Spurs side ravaged with injury, didn't have 4 of their best players. And Amorin right now, it seems to me, he's been tasked with trying to take this team that finished 15th and do something with that. So I think there's a point to be had on that one. So what I think is quite obvious, and this is my opinion, and I hope I am proved wrong on this, but if I am proved wrong on this one, then I think again we are in dire straits. I think we're going to do stuff on the cheap. I believe that Ineos have no intention. I think they're linking us to players with no intention of buying these players to quell a uprising, to quell a mass hysteria, because they class us fans as hysterical. So Andreas Franzen, we're going to pay for the Glazers' mistakes for a very long time, because you can't correct 20 years of mistakes in 1 or 2 years. That's impossible. 100%. And this is why this chat is brilliant, because honestly, just like absolute smart, that's we can see this stuff, and it's obvious to us. Temesgen, sorry if I pronounced that wrong. Plus, Ineos make plan for Osimhen. Please. I liked Osimhen in Burmo. Edison, Rust United is better for next season. I like that comment as well, because I will give you my opinion on that, and in the chat as well. I think it's really important to give that opinion some consensus on that. So Osimhen is a no-go. And, looking at Fabrizio, looking at Ornstein, looking at a lot of tweets, Osimhen is going to go to Galatasaray. What they're trying to do with Napoli now is basically arrange how they're going to structure that payment. So what they want to do is, I think they want 40 million up front and then 35 over X amount of time. So they're really into the transfer. They're going to pay his wages. The president, as a proper president should do, has come out and basically said that they want this player. We're not looking at anybody else, and they've and they've gone to the bank. They've got some guarantees from the bank as well to say that they've got these funds. So Osimhen is gone. Osimhen as well, to note that his wage demands were, I think it was 400,000 net or 350,000 net. Excuse me. So for him to earn that here in the UK, we are talking probably north of 450, 500k for him to walk away with that net. So Osimhen deal, I don't think that was ever there. I do think we inquired about him, but Osimhen is done. In Burmo, I think this needs to get done. You know, I keep saying that it's going to get done. I'm hoping it gets done today, tomorrow. Holding up the shirt, I'm still convinced that he's going to be holding up the shirt on Wednesday. Whether or not it gets announced on Wednesday and they chuck him a United top, then I think that could still happen on Wednesday. Rios, I think I just think we're being linked, and I think logically, Rios, as much as I like him as a player, I think from a logical perspective, if you're looking at the midfield and you're looking at Ineos and how they do their business, looking at the games we have to play this year, looking at we've only really got the Premier League week in, week out, and then we've got the cup. So if you look at Collier, Ugarte, Fernandez, Mainu, trying to think who else is in there. Casemiro, you know, we've got 5 players in there for 2 spaces. So I think unless we sell one of those players, and Collier, I don't count him in that. So I think unless we sell a player, Rios, I don't think is a go. But I do agree with those players would make us better. And as an opinion, you know, I really wish that you were right and those deals that I think we could do. But I think we're going to be moving away from these sorts of deals, and I think we're going to be moving towards free deals. Bobby, we really need a keeper now that Onana is out for 8 weeks. Yep. I think we needed one anyway. And now that he's out for 8 weeks, I've been hearing bits and bobs and talking to other fans and other people that I know, not in and around the club, but just people. There's people that I know that have strong opinions as well, who do know people who know people. So by accounts and by what is coming out of the club, I don't think that we will be buying a new goalkeeper. Now, we have been linked to, I think it's John, and I think as a number 2 with the potential to jump into number 1, I think that is a really, really, really good idea. But I just don't know. I worry about the keeper situation. I don't think any of our keepers are good enough. And I think that I really just don't know what to say on this. I struggle for words. That Onana, we could have had an opportunity to potentially get rid of him. The other keeper, Martinez, looking at him, and I just struggle. I really do. I struggle for words in it. I just don't know with this keeper. I think if we do move for a keeper, we will maybe go for a number 2, a young number 2, who can potentially look to replace him, but I think that keeper would need to come in, and we'd need to basically do what we did with the Heaven and look around and see if we can find kind of like a Heaven. And this is where scouting comes in, and this is something that we don't do. We don't do well. Why don't we scout well? We should have a succession plan. And recruiting keepers, I think we are shocking at that. Also, Onana may not be out for eight weeks. He actually may be back for the first game of the season, or he might just miss that game. So I really don't know with that. I think Onana's going to be back. Now, I don't wish injuries on players. I don't want players to get injured. But when I heard he was out for 8 weeks, I sort of celebrated a bit. Rob, what does Rob say? Hi, I agree. Welcome, Rob. Hi, I agree. I do think we need a new keeper, but they'll probably make do for pre-season, and they will get Onana fit for the start of the season. I agree with that as well. I think that they will do everything to get him back. I think that they spent a lot of money on this keeper, and this is why I really think that we don't have a lot of football people who are who know a lot about this club, who really know how important this club is, how important the keeper position is. Now, it really is an important position where the weight of the goalkeeper position does really weigh heavy on a lot of people. So it's really important that we get this people right. Now, the likes of Amorin know this, Wilcox as well. So Wilcox, I actually think that he's a football guy. He played the game. I do think he's a good guy, and I do think that he knows and he wants this keeper out. But I think we're stuck with him for another season. We're, as a club, we're to a point now whereby we are being held to ransom by goalkeepers who will refuse to leave because he signed a contract. Now, I don't hold it against players. They've got a contract through no fault of their own. They signed a contract, and it's up to the club have made a mistake on those contracts. Previous, like Ten Hag made a mistake for this keeper. I do not know what he saw in this keeper. So he's perfectly legitimate, is able to sit on this contract and not move. But what this comes down to is your integrity, I think, as a football player. You may disagree on this, but I think that if you know deep down that you are not providing what you need to provide for this club, and you've made clangers from any big club would just be able now just to remove these players, but also these players should want to go. So Bobby says, I don't wish injuries on anyone at United, but Onana getting injured is an opportunity to bring someone in new for a challenge and for the number one spot. Agreed. I think again, I agree with you on that. I don't think you can wish injury on players, but sometimes an injury is an opportunity for somebody to come into the squad and cement their place. Sadly for us, over the last X amount of years, we've not had that opportunity. They've not had that appetite to come in to the club, and they just basically haven't performed to the standard. So Onana's injury, to me, I don't really think that changes a lot. I think we'll make do with the keepers that we do have, because I don't think now we're going to shift them out, and I think we'll just make do with what we've actually got. Richard Rios, I think we've mentioned that as well. After the Club World Cup, I saw a couple of YouTubers and reports on this saying that talks are starting on Rios, and I always, when it comes to information from the club, that basically anything is just, unless it comes from like Ornstein or Fabrizio, it's not news, and there's no one, there's probably only one channel out there, and you probably know who that is, the biggest one out there. They probably do get bits of information, but other than that, no one else really gets anything out of the club. So everything is subjective and of an opinion. Now, this is why I kind of, over a weekend, I kind of wait. I mean, I'd love to do shows, but I think that's the beauty of doing a Monday show after the weekend, because you can kind of analyze a little bit more, watch and see what people do and come up with, and then ultimately, you could, I could do 2 or 3 shows a day, just jumping on bits of stuff, but I don't, for the reason why I think some of it is so obvious. Rios, again, 25 million. I think that's a deal that you would do. I think it's a deal that we should do, but I just think it goes to show that we don't have that cash. So I think right now the position that we are in, and I'd love to know your opinion on this, is that we basically don't have any cash. I wonder if we can't do the Imbermo deal. Mark Harris, this window is a train wreck. Platform 69. It is a train wreck. It's an absolute. This is probably going to be the worst window. But do you know what? We have had the worst season, the worst finish, with the worst final. Probably, I don't know. The worst, was it the worst wins, the worst goal record, the worst whatever it is this window. Why can't we have the worst window? We are breaking records for the worst stuff in this last year, but apparently Ineos were going to save us. Ineos were going to be the best thing since sliced bread. Ineos were going to buy the club. Ineos were going to invest in the club. Ineos were going to do all bits and pieces for this club. And your opinion may be that, but I'm yet to see it. All I'm seeing are cuts. I'm seeing on the pitch 15th place, and it shouldn't be a shock, because what they did with Nice, and everybody said this about Nice, including myself, not because I'm the best, but because I use my eyes, and you can clearly see that they have no idea. Mark Harris is a kick in the teeth for United fans. Ineos and the Glazers are laughing, disgusting. They are what Ineos are a front, and many people have said this, and I've been saying this for a very long time, that they just a front. They're now doing the stuff that the Glazers didn't dare do, being backed by Sir Jim, a local lad who apparently supports the club and wants to do what's best for the club, and that's not happening, is it? And we can be spun around, and we're going to be spun around. There's going to be loads of accounts out there, and what you're going to see now, I think, in the next week or two, is going to be, we're going to be linked to all sorts of players like we were last year, because they need to spin. I think people now are just sick. I think us fans are just sick of being laughed at, being lied to, when I think the writing is on the wall that we're going to have a cheap window. More spin than the Spin Doctors. I absolutely love that song. Two Princes. I love that song. I absolutely love that song. Perfect. They are the doctors of spin. They are just little window, not a sale either. I don't even think it's as good as a little window, because at least they've got some bargains in the middle aisle. Amorin, defensive milk bag. This is EPO, not Italy. And Bermo is worse than De Jong. He's not world class. What else have we got? Andrea says, how Bobby we are. Yep. I don't know how Hoyland holds his hand out on a payday cash. I detect, Mark, that today you are not happy. You are saying the things that I agree. Body, mind, spirit. As a Spurs fan, I would take. That's interesting. I think that so far a window than us. So body, mind, spirit. I interested actually to ask you what you thought of the final. My opinion on it, and this is no disrespects to Spurs because Spurs won, and I think Spurs beat us 3 times. You missed like 4 players, and I think by all accounts, if you look at the players that you missed, I think you really on paper would have thought you may have lost. But it was a dreadful final, and we lost, and we were awful in that final. And the fact that you would take so Garnacho for 40 million for less than that, I don't necessarily think that I don't disagree with you, because I think we need to get him shot on. There's nothing with Spurs putting in a cheeky bid for that. But in a market where Alanga is 55 million, how disruptive and how concerning is it that we can't shift a player like that who's 21 with a load of experience and clubs? I think that's the pitch. I think we're back. Technical issues. I think they're testing stuff on the line today, so it's absolutely shocking. Apologies about that. 50p in the gas meter, pretty much, mate. Rob says, I think we'll probably just about do the Mbama deal, maybe a striker on free, because like you say, we have no money. I think we were some of the first to talk about this. Dominic Calvin's always been my fear, and Vardy. Yo, you're back. I know. I apologize. I testing on the line. I think it happens to the best of us, but to me quite a lot. Calvert-Lewin, Vardy. I think get cheap Vardy, short alternative to Rasmus. My problem with Vardy, I don't want to see any of them, to be quite frankly, but the fact that we are debating and talking about the best of Wilson, Calvert-Lewin, and Vardy, who's what, 38, 39. This is now the level that we've been drawn down to. Greenwood's available, total for 100 mil. Greenwood at this point, I mean, the fact that we are talking about these sorts of players, they do. United, I don't think they shoot themselves in the foot. I think they shoot themselves pretty much in the head, in the heart. In fact, I don't even think they're shooting themselves. I think they're aiming at the fans. I think they are literally aiming bullets and guns at the fan, and they're just taking us out, spinning us around. It's almost like they are shooting us in the arm, and they're saying we're not, but they are. Like you becoming cynical. It's me, sorry. No. I am a cynic. Oh, I like to think I'm being honest. I really want positivity, but I cannot right now see positivity even in the transfer that we currently are trying to get over the line. The joy is being absolutely sucked out of that player, Greenwood would be comfortable. 25 goals a season has to be said. I don't think it's something that we would do. Can you imagine, right? Can you imagine a scenario whereby Greenwood